Video is going to be a little recap summarization of chapter 2 of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Before we jump into it, please make sure to subscribe to this channel, and yeah, let's get into it. So chapter 2, Jane has just gotten in trouble, and so the servants, Bessie and Abbott, they are told by Miss Reed to take Jane up to the Red Room as punishment, and essentially she's going to have to sit in there almost like a timeout. And so they take Jane up there, and of course John doesn't get in trouble because he's the master of the house and he's going to inherit everything in the house. I say quotes, but like he really is, because it's, you know, Victorian England. And anyway, Bessie and Abbott, or Abigail, are admonishing Jane and telling her, like, oh, I've never seen someone with your temperament, and if you would just be better, like, you would be more well-liked, even though Jane is the best behaved child in the house. And anyway, they take her up to the Red Room. They are about to strap her down to a chair in order to get her to like sit still and stay there, and Jane realizes that's about to happen and says, like, no, like, I will sit still, see, like, I'm calming down. So they don't, but they do lock her in the Red Room. And then she describes how beautiful this Red Room is, and how infrequently people go in there. And then she explains, like, the reason she doesn't want to be in there is because it is the room where her uncle died. So the Master Reed, Mrs. Reed's husband. And we find out that he was actually very, very kind to Jane. And, you know, if he had lived, he would have made sure that she was taken care of and treated just as well as one of his own children. But he died. And his wife, he made her promise to take care of Jane as she would any of her own children, but she clearly hasn't. She's clearly resentful of Jane. She does not like Jane, and Jane thinks that she was she took her upset out on Jane and didn't appreciate that she was left with this orphan. And so Jane starts to speculate. She's a bit superstitious and says, you know, my uncle's wishes on his deathbed have not been kept, and she has heard of, you know, spirits coming back when they're upset about their wishes not being met. And so she's, even though she knows her uncle, his spirit would be coming back because he's upset about how she's been treated, the idea of still seeing a ghost freaks her out. A light from outside. The book is being written from her perspective when she's older. So in retrospect, in hindsight, she's saying, you know, I saw this light on the wall, and it was probably from something outside, like a lantern. But in her young mind, she thought it was her uncle's spirit coming. And so she got frantic, she cried out, and the servants and Mrs. Reed came running and got even more upset at her because they thought she was just trying to manipulate them and get them to come because she wasn't crying out about anything. And so she's left in there, and her aunt is just very cruel to her and makes her stay in there the rest of the night. And that's chapter 2. Clearly, our sweet Jane Eyre has a terrible start in her story. But as we'll see, it does get better. It takes a while, but things do get better. So that is chapter 2 of Jane Eyre. Again, please make sure to like and subscribe, and share this video with anyone who could benefit from also having the summary of chapter 2 of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre.